Women have the capacity to create significant change in the world.
The media's number one job is to distract you. And if you're being distracted by paying attention to everything else going on out there, nothing feels better than getting out of bed every morning and living a life that's on purpose and with purpose. Who do I want to impact? How do I want to impact them?
If you are opportunistic to build companies, you will stall out in the process. The only thing that ever keeps us going is...
Welcome to Coaching by the Beach, where we help you materialize the vision you have for your business, your life, your family, and the world. I'm Trevor McGregor, Master Coach.
And I'm Leesa McGregor, international best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. Together, we've built an 8-figure empire, and we've broken free from the ordinary to lead lives of extraordinary freedom, impact, and fulfillment. And now we're here to guide you to do the same.
If you've been searching for more success, more wealth, and more freedom, tune in and let's embark on this journey together. Welcome to another episode of Coaching by the Beach. We are blessed and grateful to be here with you. And boy, have we got a show for you today. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about who we help, what we're here to support. And that's you, to help you close that gap from where you are to where you want to be. So if you really want to have more success, more wealth, more freedom, and more adventure, you're in the right place. And I'm Coach Trevor McGregor. I'm here with my lovely wife, Leesa McGregor. Leesa, how are you?
I'm wonderful. So happy to be back here with you.
Yes, and I am so pumped and excited to share this episode as we're going to talk about what is your why? What is your why? Because as coaches, you and I have really done some work over the years where we found that people kind of meander in and out of having that purpose, that meaning, because the world is sped up so fast. We've got so much coming at us that oftentimes we can forget why we even get out of bed in the morning. So sometimes people hit that plateau, they feel lost, they feel confused, and this episode is the one that's going to get them back on the rails to success. So I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, this has got to be one of our most important messages. You know, I feel like this is kind of what we've been living. And I think back to when we met 15 years ago and, you know, you were in this corporate job and you had this yearning for something different, and you'd reached a plateau in your life. You were frustrated. You knew there was more to life. And I remember even in those days, you came up with this concept. What is your why? And it was all about the deeper meaning, the deeper purpose. Why are we getting out of bed in the morning? What are we here to do? So very excited for you to share that story with your listeners today. Let's talk about it, honey. Where did you start with all of this? What was the original idea?
Well, the original idea was to really think about, all right, well, who are we? Why are we here? Are we really meant to just get up and go to work and get a paycheck and come home and buy stuff? Or is there a deeper meaning? And if you don't have that deeper meaning, you start to feel less than. You start to feel, you know, like you're missing something. And I'm sure the listener out there can identify, because life is full of peaks and valleys. And you and I have discussed this so many times that when you're going up the peak, there's probably a reason why. And when you're coming down the other side and sliding into a valley, it probably means that you've lost your meaning. You've lost your purpose. And so there I was working in my corporate job way back in the day, and I was making good money. I had a title, I had a company car, I had an expense account. But I'm telling you, I had no zest for it. I was working 70, 80 hours a week, and I'd get to the end of the day and I'd go, is this all there is? And I remember coming home and you'd say, how was your day? And I'd say, you know what, it was okay. But you noticed day in and day out that I didn't have the juice, didn't have the passion, didn't have that fulfillment that, you know, you wished I would have. And so we'd get into these deep discussions over dinner and late into the evening. And it was really you who challenged me to start thinking about, you know, what if you're meant for bigger things? What if you're meant to go even deeper? And that's where this conversation really got started.
I love it. And I just think back to, I remember when we first met and you had actually came up with this concept, what is your why? And you had this logo and it was just, honestly, it captured my heart. I was like, this guy has really, you know, he's thought about life. He wants more than what's, you know, what society tells you. And it was just really the start of something that we had no idea at the time was going to unfold from there, which was a journey to working out our own life purpose. And what are we here to do? We'd already been through those experiences, having the success, having the impact, and we wanted more. And So I love that so much. So let's talk a little bit more about this whole concept. Like give the listeners the juice. Like what is it? What is your why? Explain in your terms, in your mind, what does it actually mean to know what your why is?
Well, I think that that's where we have to really, start by defining, that a why is really your core beliefs, your values and rules that allow you to guide yourself on a daily basis. And some people think that you have one why, whereas when we've done this work, we realize that we've actually got multiple whys. You might have a why for your career, a why for your health, a why for your marriage, a why for your parenting, maybe a why for travel or tithing. And so again, a lot of people think, well, I don't know my why, or even if I did, it can only be one thing. And that's when we did this work many, many years ago and started to share it with other people. We started to figure out frameworks and identities and a different way of thinking and behaving about it, where it was almost like a hierarchy of what was important to you, right? So as I was lost, confused, you were also trying to cheerlead and champion me. We went right back to the basics that said, what are we really on this earth to do? And that's when I started to come up with a deeper meaning that I am here to learn, to love, to laugh, to grow, and to share, and to contribute all of that to help other people do the same. And I just love that. I'll say it again. I'm here to learn, to live, to laugh, to love, to grow, to share, to contribute, and help other people do the same. So when I got up in the morning and I'd recite that to myself, or I'd look in the mirror, or I'd be in the shower and doing some gratitude work for the ability to get clear on this, that's when things change for us for the better, right? We literally decided to leave our corporate positions. Both of us, we literally decided to dive more into personal growth. We decided to travel more. We decided to tithe more. And it all came from what was truly important to us. And so for the listener, I want to also stack on the fact that a lot of my clients are, again, directionless at some point. It might be in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, but you got to realize that your why isn't outside of you. Your why is within. And that's what I love about your story as well, because when you kept looking externally for it and shifted to going internal, I'll let you share that with the listener. It's so good.
This was a bit of a crisis actually for me at the time, because I felt like, again, and I talked about this in an earlier episode, I'd had the success, I'd made the money, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And that was such an unsettling feeling. It was like everything I'd worked towards really didn't mean anything at this point. And I started asking myself that question, like, how can I make meaningful change in the world? And that was my guiding star. It was like, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to create change in the world. That was really something that was making me think bigger. It was making me think about different possibilities. And, it was interesting too, because there was that part of me, like, I've always known I've been a change maker. I've always known that I'm here to change the status quo. I'm here to change the system. I've always had a healthy disregard for the status quo. And so I knew that I wanted to create change. And so I started writing about this in my journal. And for me, having made money, having built companies that had made millions of dollars at that point, I realized that my thing was like, I don't want to just make money. I want to make money and make a difference. And so I set myself on this journey to say, how can I create something that makes money and makes a difference? And I'm not telling you that I had it figured out overnight. This was a journey that took years and years to really figure out. And I can say at this point, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is that I proved this idea. I proved this vision. It was like, I can make money. I can make a difference. I can impact the world. And it's actually never been easier than ever at this point in our journey. We live in an age of exponentials. You can impact the world in the most profound ways. And so I realized that that was my why. It was like, okay, I want to make a meaningful difference. I want to create change in the world. I want to be tuned into my purpose every day, which is to love and to serve. And at this point, and this is part of why we decided to start Coaching by the Beach, is we realized that we've actually become a living example for people. And so that's also become part of my why. Never in a million years did I think that I was going to be in this position in my life, right? Where we've created everything that we've ever wanted, and I want to share that with others. I want other people to realize that that's possible for them. It's not just about us anymore. It's realizing that when you do have that vision for something bigger than yourself, and you really tune into your why, tune into your purpose, that is where you start to get the juice, the fuel that brings you up a level, and it gives you inspiration to keep going. So maybe why don't we talk a little bit more about some of the journeys of your clients? I know a lot of people come to you. You're kind of like the why guy. I mean, people come to you when they've reached that pinnacle of success and they are feeling tapped out. They've reached a plateau. They're frustrated. They don't even see, why they're doing it. It's just like they get to that point. And I'd love for you to share more about how you take your clients through that process, that journey to the second chapter. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I love that you said second chapter because it's all about where you are today. But what if there was a blank canvas? What if there was chapter 2 waiting for you to write? And it doesn't matter if I'm working with a Fortune 500 executive or a real estate investor or an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or some of the couples that we coach. They all get to that place that if they don't have that North Star, if they don't have the guiding principles, if they don't have that, juice, like you say, to get up in the morning and know why they're doing what they're doing, that's where they come to me kind of, feeling a little bit disconnected. And I think, again, the world is sped up so fast. We've got so much coming at us in the economy, with, what's going on in politics, what's going on, as a planet. And people are so distracted, Leesa, that it gets them out of remembering why we're really here. So what I do with clients and what we do is we go right back to the beginning, right? We start talking about, what is important to you? What are your beliefs? What are your values? What are your rules? I mean, what's important to you? And at the end of the day, what's great about the work we do with people is we've become pattern recognition specialists. So after doing 40,000 coaching sessions, standing on stages all over the world and working with all of these people, there's a common thread that people don't feel like they're enough. People don't feel lovable. People don't feel that their purpose is big enough or matters. And that's where we go back to the fact that we got to start at ground zero, where you are enough. You're here on purpose and with purpose to fulfill a lifetime of experiences, not only for yourself, but also others. And that's where you always say, that great Tony Robbins quote. And for the listener, I had the great blessing and honor to work with the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Robbins, for over half a decade as one of his top business coaches. He always said that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I find a lot of my clients that maybe they come up through the ranks in Fortune 500, they are successful real estate investors, they're successful in e-commerce, they're successful in raising families. They get to that point in their mid-40s, late 40s, early 50s, where they start to go into that midlife crisis when they really reach out because they're really lost and they're begging for help. And so again, that help is getting clear about, what is important to you. And we start with going through what's called your why stack. Now, your why stack is really a framework, and I won't share it all here. I'll tease you a little bit with the first part of it and invite some of you to come in and do some work with us, because your why stack is really what's the number one thing that's important to you? What's number 2? What's 3? What's 4? And if you can get down to what we call your infinite 8, now you've got 8 reasons to get out of bed in the morning, right? And so for me, right, what's really important to me is my spirituality. Right? I am connected to source, God, infinite intelligence, whatever you call it, and something is giving my heart the ability to beat almost 100,000 times a day. My lungs are taking in oxygen. My food is digesting. So it's important for me to remember that something is giving me this life. I didn't have to pay for it, but I'm grateful for it. And then that leads to number 2, which is my health. Because if I'm not really living my best health, I can't go through the rest of my infinite 8. Right? So if I've got spirituality and health that are important to me, number 3 is my family. That's Leesa. That's our 3 boys, Matthew, Mitchell, and Maxwell. And then from there, we get into impact. We get into real estate. We get into making money because, again, money's not a dirty word. If you're making money, it's probably because you're making impact, right? Money is a byproduct of the impact that you make. So as I get crystal clear on what's important to me, why it's important to me, and ask the question, am I activating it every morning to go out there and deliver it? That's when sparks fly and magic happens, because it's not just something you create one time and you say, thank God that's over. That would be like going to the gym and lifting weights. You wouldn't go to the gym one time and lift weights and say, well, I'm good for the year. You got to go back and you got to tear the muscle. And when that muscle repairs, the fibers make it even stronger. And that's really when our whys started to get us into more personal growth, more real estate, more coaching, more speaking, more travel, more tithing. And there's not a day that goes by that you and I don't, have an attitude of gratitude for really living that active why. So that's a little bit about how I show up and how I help my clients to show up, to get clear on what it is that's important to them, why it's important. And don't forget to bring your spouse and your family into the conversation, because it's a holistic way to get clarity. But why don't you share the same thing that has allowed you to go out there and create so much success, wealth, freedom, and adventure from that foundational why?
Wow, this really tees it up for me. So for me, I will speak from the feminine perspective. And so as a woman, I'm very clear that my family is of utmost importance. I'm very clear that obviously health, family, all the things that you talked about, those are important. But when it comes to career, especially for us in this time that we're living through, women have the capacity to create significant change in the world. And I speak with absolute conviction because I had set out myself to create change. And what I've done, and I'll be sharing this in future episodes, is beyond my wildest imagination. And so I really invite women in this conversation to realize that you actually have the capacity to create meaningful change in the world. And, I feel that as, with that feminine energy, we're here to do something with that. We're here to use that to heal the earth, literally, to regenerate the earth, to make a meaningful contribution to the well-being of our families, to the well-being of the planet. And I think that's in our inherent nature. And so one of my big passions is really supporting women to activate that power, because that power is the thing that will allow you to create the change that you want to see in the world. And so I realize, this goes back to what I'm talking about. This is my why. It is helping others to realize that they have the capacity to create this change, that we do have the ability, right? We don't have to ask that question, who am I, right? And I went through this myself. I went through my own imposter syndrome, like, who am I to do this?
Yep.
And when you really start to claim it and say, look, I'm here to make a difference. That's what I'm here to do. So you're guided by your spirit, you're guided by your soul, and you're here to do something that's going to impact the world in profound ways. And so what is your why for me is about making that difference. It's about thinking about the future, thinking about what is this new story that we're creating for humanity. Because we're living through this time. We're living through one of the most challenging times in human history. Now, we can decide to be disempowered by that. We can decide to be disempowered by what's happening in the world, or we can step into our power and realize that we are here to create that change. And so I'll be talking more about this in future, but I just wanted to kind of plant a seed today that, you are never too small to make a difference. That's the truth. The truth is that you are here to do big things. And I feel like our why can be so much bigger than just our family, just making money. Making money is great. Money is also a vehicle to create the change that we want to see in the world. Money is a resource, right? So we can use that resource for our lives. We can use it for our lifestyle, whatever it is that we want. But then we can also use that money to create significant change. We can regenerate the earth. We can start planting seeds and create a future that we really want to see for our kids, for their kids, for future generations. And so that's really the essence of my why. And I'm just excited that we've been on this journey together, honey, because this is something that you and I have supported each other with since day one. And I'm forever grateful for that. Like, if you think back to where you were when you were terrified to leave that corporate job, terrified to leave that paycheck, for something unknown, and think about how far you've come. Think about how many people you've impacted with your work. And so why don't you talk a little bit more about that? Like, again, your why. Like, you didn't get out of bed because you just wanted to make oodles and caboodles of money. You'd already done that. You wanted to do something that was going to help people. So let's talk a little bit more about that piece.
Well, I think it's about, and thank you for sharing so much about that, because it's so powerful, but I think it's about finding inspiration, right? What really is going to matter to you, not just for the next year, 2, 3, 5, but for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I'll share a quick story that I was truly inspired by my grandmother. If you really think about where we grew up on the prairies of Canada. And my grandmother owned a corner store, a little general corner store. And I was a little boy going in there. And not only did I watch her take care of the community and have this social, impact and supply bread and, all of the good stuff for people to buy at this little corner store, milk and all these things, is I would sit there and go, you know what? My grandmother is an entrepreneur, and she's not out there working for someone else. She's truly living her why, right? And it doesn't matter if you're running a corner store or you're working in a corporation or you're an entrepreneur. You've got to remember that there's multiple facets to it. And it all starts with asking better questions. What do I really, really, really want to trade my life for? Who do I want to impact? How do I want to impact them? And ultimately, what would they say if they were like that, pond or that rock we throw in the pond, or a pebble in a pond where those concentric circles come out, and now they go help someone else find their purpose, find their mission, find their destiny, find their dharma, find their why. And it was my grandma that passed it on to me, and I did it in corporate, then I did it in real estate, then I did it in coaching people all over this beautiful blue planet. But now we want to empower more people to go out there and really lift up rocks and look underneath them, because I'm telling you, nothing feels better than getting out of bed every morning and living a life that's on purpose and with purpose. So when you think about the quality of the question you ask is going to dictate the quality of the answer, you've got to start asking better questions. And nobody better than my wife, Leesa, to ask better questions. I call her the question queen, because we can't be in the SUV, or we can't be in an airplane traveling around the world, or we can't be at the dinner table without her asking me and our 3 beautiful children, and quite often a lot of the guests that we have over for dinner, powerful in questions, engaging questions. We're not talking surface level questions. We're talking about going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers deep in questions. In terms of what is that about? Why is that important to you? How do you see that helping yourself? How do you see that helping others? What's really on your heart? Because Leesa's got this beautiful ability to get people to drop out of their head and into their heart and their gut to say what's really true for them, right? Because ultimately we're embarrassed sometimes if we don't know our why, or we don't think our why is big enough, or we don't think it's as good as the next person's why. So we always go back to who's inspired you? Who have you inspired? What's something that you've done that's really lit you up, or you just felt like time stood still? And in those moments are subtle clues that if you start stacking them and creating your why stack, it'll start to show you exactly what you're here to do and what you probably crave more of.
I love that so much. And I get teary when I think about just our journey. We both had grandmothers who are entrepreneurs, and I really invite the listeners today to think about that. Like, what were the seeds that were planted for you in your early years? What were the things that really made a difference for you? And I know for myself, seeing my grandmother working hard, my grandmother ran a motel, and just the people and the way she served people. And your grandmother, it was all about service. It was about helping people. It was about lightening their day. It was having a great conversation and connecting, and hard work, like it's getting out there and doing something, making it happen. And so I really invite the listeners to think about that. Like, what were the seeds that were planted in your early years? And if you really start to connect the dots, it's profound sometimes when you connect those dots and you realize, wow, the stuff that I'm doing now connects so much to what I loved doing when I was a child, or the influences that I had when I was a child. Sometimes those influences are sometimes it's adversity. Sometimes we go through hard things that inform and shape us into wanting more for ourselves, wanting more for the world. And so I think that's just a really big piece to look into. It's like, what do you want out of life? And when you asked me that, when you're talking about the questions, I actually laugh, because I secretly ask Trevor this every day. Like I say, honey, what do you want out of life? Like, what's the next thing for you? And I'm always asking him these questions. I'm always digging deeper, because I know I'm going to get a different answer every time. And so this really goes back to the power of introspection. Ask yourself the questions. What is it that I want to do? If I could create any sort of change, what would that be? And, we live by this because we've been studying this life purpose work for over a decade, like actually probably more like close to 20 years,
Yes.
because we were living in this question ourselves. And what we've realized is that life purpose is pretty simple, actually. Your purpose is to love, it's to serve, it's to make some sort of contribution to something that's greater than yourself. And that's what we're here to do, is really just awaken that within you. If you forgot that that's what you're here to do, we're reminding you that your purpose is bigger than just going to work. It's just doing the 9 to 5 and feeding your kids. It's more than that. It's bigger than that. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to figure it out. I always laugh and tell people, especially teenagers, I say, you know what? Even us in our 40s and our 50s, we're still trying to work out what we want to do with our lives. So it's an evolution. It's not something that you're necessarily going to decide, okay, this is it. This is my why right now, and this is forevermore. Your purpose evolves. It changes.
Yep.
It grows. It has different dimensions to it. We are multidimensional humans, right? And if we give ourselves permission to live in that multidimensionality and say there's so much more to us, it's not just, like I said, it's not just those goals. It's not just making money. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, very well said. And I love that because a lot of my clients that have had success or they've achieved phenomenal levels of freedom in real estate or business or franchising or whatever it is, they get to that point where they go, you know what, the money's great, but what's even greater is using some of that to change lives, using that to travel, using that to go on a mission trip, using that to, help the homeless, or, what we really love is helping children. And that's why our publishing company, Alphabet for Humanity, which is, I know, something we're going to talk about in major episodes coming up in a few shows. It's something where, you almost like to say, what kind of legacy would you like to leave? And don't worry about how you're going to make it happen. Worry about the what. What would you like to leave? How would you like to inspire? How would you like to get people out of perhaps a negative emotion on a daily basis and show them that there's a light in the end of the tunnel? There's potential, there's possibility, there's gamification, there's optimism, because like you and I always discuss, the quality of our lives living this purpose will be in direct proportion to the emotions we feel on a daily basis. And I know it's tough out there, and a lot of people in America, Canada, the UK, Asia, even some of our clients in Europe are really having a lot of challenges. They're in fear, doubt, worry, anxiety. And again, that's a byproduct of not being crystal clear on what they're here to do. It's also part and parcel because the media has been distracting all of us. The media's number one job is to distract you. And if you're being distracted by paying attention to everything else going on out there, you're probably not paying attention to what's going on in your heart and in your gut. And that's where Leesa and I come in. And at a lot of our Coaching by the Beach retreats around the world, we get people, again, to drop out of their head into their heart and into their gut to start to believe again, to start to dream again, to start to be like that 3 or 4-year-old little girl or boy that you once were, that thought that you could be, do, and have anything you wanted, right? And you used to, run around the yard and jump off of furniture and pretend you could fly. And we've lost a lot of that childlike behavior, right? We don't want to be childish, but I invite you to return to being childlike, because once you do that, you just start to feel different. And I know you talk about this when you go on your beach walks and when you're, in front of a powerful group of men and women delivering what you're really good at. When your whole biochemistry changes and you feel like you're unstoppable and that you could go through a wall. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're no longer talking about getting up, hitting the snooze button 4 times, going to work or, going to your home office and then waiting till the last minute to go for dinner with your kids, putting them to bed and then watching a TV show. We're talking about that introspection that allows you to go deep, to ask, who am I? What do I really, really, really want? Why do I want it? And what's the rocket fuel or the juice that's ready to just explode out of me to live this next chapter in your life? What do you think, Leesa?
I love that so much. And I will tell you, like I said, we're going through challenging times, in the most challenging time in human history, arguably. And what are we going to do with that? Are we going to sit and look at it as though we don't have any power over this situation? Or do we take charge? Do we step into our most powerful selves? Do we step into the highest and most powerful version of who we really are to create that change that we want to see in the world? And that's something I speak about with so much conviction, because when you've got a family and you've got kids, we don't want to look back in 10 years time and have our kids look at us and say, well, what did you do? Like, how were you part of the solution? Like, Mom, Dad, what did you do to make the world better? What did you do to make the world a better place? And I don't say that as a platitude. I think we all have the capacity to create this change. And so I really invite the listeners, you can go so big and so far with your vision, and it's exciting. I'll tell you. If you step into that realm of imagination and imagine what's possible, there are so many people that we get inspired by. You look at Somebody like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, regardless of personalities or anything, they had a big vision. They had a vision for something that they wanted to do that was world changing. And I think back to Elon Musk, and I remember, he was talking about how he graduated from college, and his friends were like, oh, I want to get a good job and make lots of money. And Elon was like, oh, I want to figure out how to, create free energy for the world, right? So he was asking a different question. He had a different vision for what he thought was possible at the time, and he wanted to create that. And that's always been a big inspiration for me. And I'll be talking a little bit more about my mentors and my inspiration around this idea of creating meaningful change. But again, it comes back to having a vision that's bigger than yourself. And one really important point I want to make when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and I can tell you this with full conviction, if you are just opportunistic in your ability to, like your desire to make money and build companies, if you're just opportunistic, if you're doing it just to make a buck, you're going to stall out. Absolutely guaranteed you will stall out in the process. There's no question. The only thing that ever keeps us going is having a why. And that's really the truth. We've been through it ourselves. We've started opportunistic businesses. We started at, that little baby business. It was like, oh, we're going to make money. And it's like, then it flops. Well, why did it flop? Well, because there was no deeper meaning behind it. There was no why. And so that's my biggest piece of advice for entrepreneurs. Like, you've got to do the deep digging. You've got to figure out that what you're doing must make some sort of connection to service. It's got to be bigger than you. Otherwise, you are going to stall out at some point. And I want to save people the pain and the years of struggle and strife, and just realize that that's really what it's about. It's getting deep and clear on what your vision is for yourself, for your family, for the world.
Wow, Leesa, that is absolutely inspirational, incredible. And that is why we love to, take this and share this with our community. And now it's time for that beautiful way that we wrap up the show, which is what we call your 3 to Thrive. And so we're going to ask 3 empowering questions so that you don't just go, wow, that was a great talk, but you do something with this. This is where the rubber meets the road, where you too can take these 3 questions and apply them to your life and absolutely take things to a whole new level. So Leesa, question number 1, I'll throw it over to you.
If you really go deep on your life journey, I mean, what is the thing, what is it that you want people to say about you? When you pass on from this earth, when somebody has a funeral for you, what is it that you want them to say about you, right? What was it that you were about? What was the thing that you took a stand for in your lifetime? Just start journaling on that. Just start asking yourself that question and see how deep you can go with that.
I love that one. I love it. Question number 2.
I'll leave that to you, sweetheart.
Well, I love this because question number 2 is, how can you more often than not get out of what we call your lower self and into your higher self to think about, what the difference is? Because your lower self is the one that'll approach your why as kind of static, or it's not really that big, or it's not really that important. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. I just want to be happy, raise a good family, buy a house, buy a car, retire. And that's kind of what the lower self says. My question to you is, what would your higher self say? What would your higher self think like? What are some of the questions that, if you really think about the Elon Musks, the Richard Bransons, the Steve Jobs, the Tony Robbins, the Oprah Winfreys, that have allowed them to get out there and enroll, engage, and inspire people in amazing ways? And I can tell you, they didn't do it from their lower self. They did it from their higher self. And so, I'm challenging you to really think about this from your higher self. And question number 3, Leesa.
If there's anything that you could do, if you could wave your magic wand, what is that change you want to see in the world? What is that thing that you wish you could, change? Just ask yourself that question. Live in that question. How can I make a meaningful difference? How can I contribute to something that's bigger than myself? And that is where you're going to find the juice. That's where you're going to find your why.
I love it. Well, that'll do it. Another amazing episode. You are so good. I want to thank you. And I want to thank the viewers out there, because the comments we're getting are unbelievable. All of the messages, the DMs, the texts, the phone calls. Leesa and I truly appreciate it. And if you've enjoyed this show, we want you to also share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with other people that you think could get some massive mileage out of it, because we're here to make a difference, and we want to be in your ear day after day, show after show, episode after episode, so that you too can live your best life. And so with that said, Leesa,
peace, love, and palm trees.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today at Coaching by the Beach. If this episode helps you to see your path to more success, more wealth, freedom and fulfillment. We'd love your support.
Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And don't let your journey stop here. Connect with us in our community of like-minded achievers on all social platforms at Coaching by the Beach.
We're excited to continue exploring this path to freedom with you.